Hey guys, welcome back to the Solution Architect channel. Also, welcome back for me. There was a lot of things happening in a year ago from now. I moved back from Ireland to South Africa, and it's a lot of things that happened. That's the reason why I just never get to post new videos, focusing on a new job and focusing on new things, and I'm not going to go into detail. A few tragedies now in our family happened, and the reason why I just didn't get to my Solution Architect channel, and apologies for that, but I'm back and I'm ready. And in this specific video today, I'm going to show you how to take a .NET web application and deploy it to a local Kubernetes service that runs on Windows 10 Pro. All the prerequisites, you'll see that in the next few seconds, but everything is inside this one video. Not to install all the prerequisites. Hopefully you are experienced enough to be able to take this and go Google it and install whatever you need. But if you have any comments or questions, please leave it in the description below. I will try and get to you. I might not get to you straight away or right away, but in the next few days, if there's any comments, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. For those that subscribe to this channel, thank you so much. I'm not making money off this channel, but I'm doing it for the love of programming, getting quality out there, getting things out there that's new, playing out with new stuff like Kubernetes services and Docker and all of those. And I'm sure you guys are also excited about learning new things every day. So thank you for this video. Let's start it. Let's do it. See, here is the prerequisites that I use specifically for deploying a web application to Kubernetes. So I'm using Windows 10 Pro, and for this example, I've installed Docker for Windows. I have also enabled, once you've installed Docker for Windows, you can then enable the Kubernetes services. Remember, this is the latest version. Today is the 3rd of August 2021. So if you listen to this in a year from now, obviously there might be different functionality, but this is the latest. What I've used, enable Kubernetes services on the Docker for Windows application that I've installed. I use Visual Studio Code to do my coding. And on Visual Studio Code, there's a few extensions that I added here. I've added YAML from Red Hat, I've added Docker from Microsoft, and Kubernetes from Microsoft. Okay, just let's go through the few things that we need to be able to deploy a web application to Kubernetes service, which is going to be locally hosted. And remember, I'm using Windows 10 Pro Professional Edition. I couldn't get this working 100% on the Home Edition on my previous laptop, so apologies for that. So I'm going to show you how to do this on Windows 10 Pro. It's important to have all the prerequisites. I will put that in the video right now. What is the prerequisite that you need? For example, Docker for Windows, and you need to be able to install Docker. You need to have a Docker Hub account so you can push your image to the Docker Hub and then also pull it back then, and also need to be able to log into your Docker account. You need to have that Docker Hub account available to be able to do this. Now also Visual Studio Code, obviously I'm using now the latest .NET 5, and inside Visual Studio Code I just created a very simple web application. You can see it's just going to be, if you didn't write any web application before, well, I doubt that, it's just .NET new web app, and that's creating just a default application. We can run it quickly and I can show you how it looks like. So this is .NET run in the command, and you can see there is localhost, and I'm just going to order that, open that up. It's just a very simple welcome application. We're back to Visual Studio Code. Just going to cancel this. And also remember that you need to have Docker for Windows installed. So I'm going to just show you this Docker here. I've already got a few just test applications running. At the moment, no containers are running. I wanted to show you how to actually run the container and then also then deploy it to local Kubernetes service. And remember, you need to be able to have already installed Kubernetes service. So this video is only intending to show you how to take this web app and then deploy it to Kubernetes service. So that Kubernetes service needs to be installed. If you have got Kubernetes for Windows like this, and you go to your configuration settings here, you'll see that you've got Kubernetes on the list here. If you do not have the latest Windows, you need to make sure you've got the latest Windows installed. And I can quickly show you how to check your latest Windows environment. But first of all, this needs to be enabled. So if this is not enabled, you need to click this, and then it will give you a, I'm going to minimize this, apply and restart. So when you do this and click enable Kubernetes service on this Docker for Windows installation, you can just apply and restart, and all the Docker services will be available for you. You can go back here and just say kube control version. If I can spell kube control correctly. Alright, there's no version flag to it, but actually Kubernetes, if you can't do this, then you won't be able to run any Kubernetes. You can say also kube control get services, and that will show you that Kubernetes itself is running. If it's not, if it doesn't show you this, then it means that you haven't installed Kubernetes services correctly on your Windows machine. But if you do install the Docker for Windows, then you will definitely be able to run it automatically, because that will do it for you. It's a little bit better than a year ago. So let's jump into getting the application ready to be deployed. So the other thing we know, we're using Visual Studio Code, and we need a few extensions here. You can see in the bottom here, I've got Kubernetes extensions, I've got the Docker extension. So you need to make sure that you've got the Kubernetes extension installed. So if you click on here, you'll see I've already got the latest one installed from Microsoft. It needs to be the one from Microsoft. And once that is installed, you also need to make sure that you've got the Docker extension installed, which is also the Microsoft One Docker installed. Another one that you will need, because we're going to use YAML files, is just click on YAML, and there's a Red Hat One YAML that you also need to install. I just installed the latest version. So those three are the most important ones that you're going to need to be able to deploy your web application. So let's now go into the code itself. Like I said, very simple web application. I've made no changes. Remember, I am now using .NET 5.0. So that is one SDK that you need to install. So ensure that you've got the .NET 5 SDK also installed to be able to do this. So there's a lot of prerequisites. I'll bring it up into the video and show you more or less what you need to be able to do this. So I'm going to just run through the steps very quickly, but if there's any questions, please leave it in the comment below. The first thing that we need to have is obviously a Docker image. To be able to create a Docker image, we need a Docker file. So inside your command palette, you also click Ctrl-Shift-P. You see I've already got, you can also just search for Docker. If that Docker extension is not installed, you won't be able to install this Docker file. I'm going to just select this Docker file. This is an ASP.NET Core application, .NET. And I'm going to run this as a Linux container. Now you cannot do this on Windows Home 10. If you don't have WSL2 enabled, there's just, I struggled myself. I got it working at one stage, but I've just recently bought myself a gaming desktop, which is a little bit more powerful, and also upgraded to Windows 10 Pro because of all the additional things for developers that you get to be able to do certain things. This is a Linux application, and I'm going to change this to this port, just to the basic port, port 80. It will come up normally as port 80, and then it will ask you, do you want a Docker Compose? I'm not really using a Docker Compose, so I'm going to just say no. And if you go to the Docker file itself, what I don't like with the Windows 5, they bring in this focal image, which didn't really work for me. So it might work, it might not. I'm just going to use the normal. I'm just going to take this focal out. So it's just 5.0, and all the rest stays the same. This will default to be exposed on port 80, and this is your build aspect of it, and this is the publish aspect of publish your application, and then this is making it available in the publish environment. Alright, so let's build our Docker image. So we're going to docker build -t. But before we do that, just ensure that you're logged into Docker, and that will use your existing credentials, which is your Docker Hub ID, Docker ID, and your username and password. That will ask if you haven't logged in before. The solution architect, the application name, which is it's MIK8 app, and we can have version 1 / dot Docker images. You'll see you've got your Docker image there. And now I'm going to Docker push this image version 1. And this will push it now to your Docker Hub. And when that is done, we should be able to then pull it back into the Kubernetes service. That will be next. Alright, so you can see your Docker has been image has been pushed, and just to confirm, you can go back to your Docker for Windows. You'll see that Docker image is there. It says in use remote. If this is correct, setup. No, it doesn't show it right here because I've got so many pages of stuff. So don't worry about that. It should be available to be able to now to pull it into Docker, your Kubernetes service. So that's next. Go back to Visual Studio Code and we'll do our Kubernetes service. Ensure that you've got kube control. Kube control, if you just type it in there, you'll see that you'll be able to execute kube control. If it doesn't have that, then it's not installed correctly. You're going to have to go to Docker for Windows and enable it inside there. There's other ways of doing it, but I'm not going to go into that level of detail here. So there's two files you need. One file is actually for the deployment itself. So we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it deployment.yaml file. And you see when I started typing deploy, it brings up this template for me. Now, if you haven't got the YAML, Red Hat YAML as an extension installed on Visual Studio Code, you won't get this. And you're going to have to do this all on your own, which is a little bit, I'm cheating a little bit, but if you've got that, and it just makes your lives easier, click on this, Kubernetes deployment. You'll see it brings out a list of the template that you'll use to create your deployment for you. So the first one inside here, now I want to stick to the name MYK8 app, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm just going to stick to that name, MYK8 app deployment. Alright, so this is, I'm just going to copy this name because I'm going to reuse this. So this is just my deployment for metadata, what I'm actually trying to do right now in this YAML file. The selector means which pod will I select when I actually run this, this Kubernetes service. So this will be called the application name. You can call it whatever you want, and I'm going to call it pod so it's easy to reference. And the same with the template. I'm going to use the same name, and the template is also pod. So then you can go into your application name and change that. And I'm just going to paste this in here and also just call this my container. So this is actually what is running. Now the image itself is the image that you push through to your Docker Hub. So if I go back into my, you'll see that this is the image that I pushed, and I'm just going to copy and paste that over to my image here so it references the correct image. Then I need some resources inside here. This is very minimum, a little bit of memory, a little bit of CPU. Just leave it as is, and the container port is just the default port 80 that we specified. So this is your deployment YAML. Just make sure you file save. My autosave is on, so this will automatically be saved. Next steps to go down here and actually go apply this deployment. And the way you do this, you go down to your terminal right here. I'm just going to paste in the command that I've copied. Kube control apply -f dot / deployment, your deployment file that you've got in there, and then just press enter, and you'll see that the deployment is created. So what you can do is kube control get deployments, and you'll see there's one available, up and running, it's available, and this is my deployment. Now you won't be able to see this and be able to call your application. You still have to have some sort of interface or integration into that pod. Now the way that Kubernetes works is with a service, or sometimes ingress service, sometimes just a load balancer. We're going to just keep it easy and create a simple load balancer service to be able to deploy our application that being hosted on that and available on that. So we'll create a new file, right click on here, create a new file called service.yaml. Okay, and then we just call it service. So you'll see that again, your template is coming up that says Kubernetes service. And if you click on the service, it will give you the out of the box service that you want to reference. Okay, again, for the purposes of the service, I need to give it a name. So I'm going to give this name MYK8 app and just call it service. And then this is quite important. This is important to select the correct pod, because this is the service will then go and look at where is this pod to be able to divert any traffic coming in to that spot inside there. If we go back to our deployment YAML, and this is what we call up our pod, same as that. Go back to my service, and this is going to be my name inside here. The next one in the change that you have to make is which is the port that you want this pod to run on. Now remember, the default port we said is 80. But there needs to be a port allocated specifically to this service. And I'm just going to use 8080 for this purposes. And the target port, because the target port will be 80. Obviously, that this is your Kubernetes port that it will access. And your port, we're not doing HTTPS right here, it's just straightforward HTTP, that's just local. And you just need to have additional to say what is this type of service that we're actually running. So we just need to add an additional thing in here that's called type. And the type of service that we will want to run here is called load balancer. And that is the service. So what I will do is I will upload this code also on my my GitHub and share it in this video on the description below. So this is the second one we want to do, is we also now want to apply this service. Make sure it's saved. Mine's autosave. And I'm going to go back to kube control, apply -f dot /service dot YAML and enter. And I made a mistake on the F inside there. Okay, so now what you can do is you can create kube control, and my typing is really bad today, get services, and you can see it's really bad, services. And you'll see that you've got now your application service running as a inside a load balancer. You just don't worry about the cluster IP, but this will run on localhost and it will run on 8080. So this is how you're going to access your service itself. So let's go into Google, and I'm going to show you how to access that service. So this is going to be localhost. So I'm going to change this to 8080. So I used it before for something else, but if I just have this, it will hopefully redirect to my index, which is my web application that I'm just running on a Kubernetes service locally on my Windows machine. So this is how you deploy just a very quick web application to Kubernetes service. If there is any additional questions, please leave it in the comments below. I'll try and get back to you guys as quick as possible. I hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe. Please click the notification. There is lots more coming. And thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing. Really appreciate that. See you guys later.